This video is brought to you by Manscaped, the best in men's grooming. More about them later in the video. Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tipped. My name is Julian, and today's episode is one that you guys have been waiting for a long time. Was my most popular episode of the preseason last year. This is my top 50 players for fantasy this year. Before we get started, guys, please leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. And if you do want to take your support to the next level, you can check out the link below to my Patreon. And without further ado, let's jump right into my list of the top 100 players, starting with number 1, Connor McDavid. Now, obviously, Connor McDavid is the number 1 guy to draft. There's been no doubt about that for years now. Connor McDavid finished last year with 123 points, which is absolutely insane. And there honestly should not be any doubt in your mind. If you're drafting first overall, you are drafting Connor McDavid. And then at number 2, I have Austin Matthews, who a lot of people have at number 3 below Leon Draisaitl, but I have him at number 2 just because, guys, last year he scored 60 goals. It's absolutely insane. And at the pace that he scores goals, he's so valuable. He actually had a higher point per game pace than Connor McDavid last year, but Matthews always tends to miss a few games, which is why I still have him below Connor McDavid. But Austin Matthews is definitely someone that you do want to be drafting at 2nd overall, unless you really are concerned about the position eligibility. I know natural center isn't the most ideal position this year, but Matthews and McDavid are definitely still worth drafting 1 and 2 overall. Then at number 3, I have Leon Draisaitl, who was actually 5th in the league last year in terms of point per game, just below Ovechkin and McKinnon on top of the other 2 guys on this list. But honestly, guys, that center and left wing eligibility is super huge, and Draisaitl's obviously going to put up some monster numbers, just like he did last year. 110 points is really good for your fantasy team. Then number 4, I have Nathan MacKinnon, who was 3rd in the league in terms of fantasy points per game last year, just behind McDavid and Matthews. And if you're drafting 4th overall and MacKinnon falls into your lap, it's pretty hard to pass up on him. You definitely are going to want to take MacKinnon on your team. If he is healthy the entire season, he's going to be a treat to have on your team. Then at number 5, I have Kirill Kaprizov, who had 108 points in 81 games last year, was utterly fantastic. His line mates are decent, but aren't exactly superstars. He is a superstar, and he's going to have another amazing season this year. Could easily score 50 goals this year. I think Kaprizov's going to have himself one hell of a year. Definitely like him drafting at number 5. Then at number 6, I have Cale Makar, and while I think a couple of the guys that I have ranked below Cale Makar will actually end up with more fantasy points per game than him, having a defenseman as good as Cale Makar on your team is going to help you tremendously. He puts up some decent peripherals as well, lots of shots on goal. And overall, guys, Cale Makar is going to be an absolute stud for your fantasy team. Then I have Nikita Kucherov, who last year scored 69 points in 47 games. Obviously, the health concerns have been there for Kucherov, so that's a little bit concerning. However, last year, didn't miss any time after he came back from injury, was healthy the whole playoff run, so I think he's going to be good to go this year and should be healthy all season, like Kucherov at number 7. At number 8, I have Mikko Rantanen, who scored 92 points in 75 games last year. He plays on the top line with Nathan MacKinnon, top power play with Nathan MacKinnon, Cale Makar, Gabriel Landeskog. He's going to score a lot of points again this year. Definitely like Mikko Rantanen at number 8. It's quite a safe pick, and he's got dual eligibility with that center eligibility as well. Then at number 9, I have Jonathan Huberdeau, who scored 115 points in 80 games with the Panthers last year. Obviously, this year he's no longer with the Panthers. He's got the Calgary Flames. I see him still having another really solid season. Going to play on that top line probably with Elise Lindholm and Tyler Toffoli. And I see that line really producing and the top power play doing very well in Calgary this year. Huberdeau, like him at number 9. At number 10, I have Alexander Ovechkin, who finished as the 4th overall player in terms of fantasy points per game last year. Was absolutely fantastic. Scored 50 goals, and at his age, that is so impressive. So it's pretty hard for me to drop Ovechkin any lower than this. Obviously, the reason that I have him dropped as low as 10 is because of his age, but I fully expect him to have another very solid season. Then at number 11 and number 12, I have the 2 best goalies for fantasy this year. Andrei Vasilevsky and Igor Shesterkin should both have amazing seasons with a lot of wins, really nice save percentages, good for both categories and points leagues. Very good draft picks. Obviously, I don't personally love picking goalies in the first round, but 11 and 12, they're pretty good value here. Then I have Sasha Barkov, who finished the year last year with 88 points, but had a very high shooting percentage, over 18%. So I expect it to come down a little bit. He finished the year last year as the 6th overall player in terms of fantasy points per game, and I have him ranked this year at number 13. At number 14, I have Mitch Marner. And there's not a whole lot of bad things I can say about Marner. Ended up with 97 points last year, placed top line and top power play with Austin Matthews. He scored 35 goals last year, and I think he's going to have a really solid season once again this year. Then I have Matthew Tkachuk, who's a new Florida Panther this year at number 15. Scored 104 points with Calgary last year, playing with Johnny Gaudreau and Elise Lindholm. This year, he'll probably get Alexander Barkov on his line, so I expect another very, very solid season from Matthew Tkachuk, and I expect him to be on the top power play as well, and that's why I have him at number 15. At number 16, I have Roman Josi, who scored 96 points in 80 games. I don't expect him to score quite at that pace this year. However, I expect him to have another very, very good year, like him at number 16. At number 17, I have Steven Stamkos, who scored 106 points in 81 games. In the majority of the season, he was without Nikita Kucherov. So very, very impressive season by Steven Stamkos, and I expect him to have another very, very strong year this year. Got him at number 17. Now, number 18, I have Timo Meier, who I have ranked significantly higher than where he's currently going in drafts. Honestly, guys, he was absolutely amazing last year, finishing as the 21st best fantasy player. And if he can have some better finishing luck, he's going to finish even better this year. His shooting percentage was only 10% last year, and I expect that to go up a little bit. I really do like Timo Meier at number 18. At number 19, I have JT Miller of the Vancouver Canucks, scored 99 points in 80 games on a pretty lackluster Canucks team, and that's with Elise Pettersson really having not such a great year until the very end of the season. Really do like JT Miller at number 19. At number 20, I have Jake Guentzel, who scored 84 points in 76 games on Pittsburgh Penguins, and they have the same team once again in this year. He should be playing once again with Sidney Crosby on that top line, and I expect another very, very good year from Jake Guentzel, and that shooting percentage could even go a little bit higher this year. At number 21, I have Kyle Connor, who finishes the 24th best player in terms of fantasy points per game last year, and I'm expecting a very, very similar year for him this year. Got him at number 21. At number 22, I have David Pastrnak of the Boston Bruins, and I only have him this low because of the injuries to Boston at the beginning of the year. With Brad Marchand gone, what are the lines going to look like in Boston? Regardless, David Pastrnak is one of the best talents in the NHL. That's why I got him at number 22. At number 23, I have Chris Kreider, who scored 52 goals last year in 81 games. I'm expecting another really solid year from him. I'm expecting that shooting percentage to stay very, very high because that New York Rangers power play is really, really good. That's why I got Kreider at number 23. At number 24, I have Juuse Saros, my personal favorite goalie in the NHL right now. Ended last year with a 918 save percentage, 38 wins, and is going to get so many starts for Nashville. He's played in 67 games last year for Nashville, and I expect something very similar to that this year. Definitely like Juuse Saros at number 24. Then I have Gabriel Landeskog at number 25. Scored 59 points in 51 games last year. Scored 30 goals, which is absolutely insane. But that shooting percentage was a little bit high, which is why I expect it to come down a little bit, and that's why I got him at number 25. At number 26, I have Victor Hedman, 85 points and 20 goals for a defenseman, over a point per game. Absolutely fantastic. That's why I got him at number 26. At number 27, I have my Manscaped must draft player of the video, Evander Kane. Welcome to Fresh Ball Fall, boys. It's the season of pumpkin spice and making sure your crotch looks nice. That means stepping aside in the fall breeze and using Manscaped products to trim your balls with ease. That's right, today's show is brought to you by Manscaped, company here to make sure that your foliage isn't the only thing shredding its excess leaves. Heck, even Mother Nature knows that it's time to lose the excess clutter for fall. Join 6 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the code word FANTASYTIP. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com with my code word FANTASYTIP. Now, why is Evander Kane my Manscaped must draft player of the video? Well, it's quite simple actually. His ADP is 64.5, and I have him ranked as the 27th best fantasy player. But Evander Kane last year, in the 43 games he actually played, was the 19th best fantasy player in terms of fantasy points per game. The dude shoots the puck so much and also hits a lot, which is why I absolutely love Evander Kane, where he's currently going at that ADP. Absolute steal. I got him at number 27. At number 28, I have Jacob Markstrom, one of the best goalies in the league right now, playing for a very, very good team. Calgary obviously was going to take a step back this offseason. Did not. They signed Nazem Kadri. They got Jonathan Huberdeau, they're going to have a really solid year this year, and Jacob Markstrom is going to have himself another really, really strong season, especially with Mackenzie Weegar in front of him, helping that defense even more. At number 29, I have Brady Tkachuk of the Ottawa Senators, primed to have a really strong year this year. The dude is known for shooting the puck and hitting a lot. If you're in a hits league, Brady Tkachuk is someone that I like around this range. If your league does not have hits, I would lower him quite a few spots. But Brady Tkachuk is going to have a really strong year this year, even offensively. He's going to play on a line again with Norris and Batherson and play on that top power play that now features Alex DeBrincat. It's going to be a strong year for Tkachuk and the Senators in general. Like him at number 29. At number 30, I have Andrei Svechnikov, and he's another guy who I would drop quite a few spots if you don't have hits in your league, because Svechnikov hits a decent amount, and that's why I have him here at number 30. Chris Letang, someone who I absolutely love drafting this year, currently going at an ADP of 59.7, which is almost double where I currently have him ranked. He scored 68 points in 78 games last year, and I think he's going to have another very strong season on another very good Pittsburgh Penguins team, like him at number 31. At number 32, I have Artemi Panarin, who scored 96 points in 75 games last year, and I think his shooting percentage could go up even higher. Got him at number 32, but he could end up finishing even higher than this. At number 33, I have Frederik Andersen, who is one of the best goalies in the league, guys. He's playing for a very, very strong Carolina Hurricanes team. And the reason I have him ranked a little bit lower than Jacob Markstrom on this list, despite having him ranked higher than Markstrom on my top 25 goalies list, is mostly because of the injury risk. And he's a little bit higher of an injury risk than Jacob Markstrom, which is what I accounted for here. At number 34, I have Philip Forsberg of the Nashville Predators, and he had such an amazing season last year. Believe it or not, he finishes the 8th best fantasy player in terms of fantasy points per game. Obviously, I'm expecting that shooting percentage and that on-ice shooting percentage to go down significantly, but I still have him ranked here at number 34. At number 35, Alex DeBrincat, who is newly acquired from the Ottawa Senators, going to play on that top power play with Tkachuk, Batherson, Norris, Thomas Chabot. I'm expecting him to have a really strong year. Got him at number 35. Then at number 36, I have Aaron Ekblad of the Florida Panthers, and the big concern over the last couple of years is that he was injured both years. This year, I think he's going to stay healthy, and I think he's going to have himself a really strong season. Like him at number 36. At number 37, I have Ilya Sorokin of the New York Islanders, and I know I had him a lot later in my top 25 goalies video. However, a lot of leagues these days are categories leagues, and in categories leagues, Sorokin is super valuable because he's going to put up such good numbers, both save percentage-wise and goals against average-wise. He's still going to get a lot of wins this year, and I think he's going to be very valuable for your fantasy team. In points-based league, I would drop him a little bit on this list, only because he may not get as many starts as you'd like because Varlamov is still there. That being said, I still think he's going to start a lot, and I still think he's going to have a very strong year, so I don't hate drafting him in points-based leagues either. And number 38 is Johnny Gaudreau, and last year he finished as the 14th best fantasy player in terms of fantasy points per game. The big difference between this year and last year is that this year he's on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Last year he was on a really strong line with Tkachuk and Lindholm on Calgary. With the Blue Jackets, he'll probably play with Laine and Jenner, I imagine. And that's actually a pretty decent line, which is why I still have him ranked here at number 38, but definitely not quite as good as that Calgary Flames line, and that's why I got him here at 38. Then I have Kevin Fiala, who last year finished as the 47th best fantasy player. Why do I have him ranked so much higher? Because last year he was playing with frickin' Frederick Gaudreau and Matt Boldy, and Matt Boldy's not bad, but he was a rookie last year, so he was playing with not the best line mates, whereas this year he's probably going to be playing with Kopitar and with Adrian Kempe, and if he does play on that line, I really do like him for fantasy this year. Not to mention, guys, the dual eligibility just makes him that much more valuable. And then at number 40, you have Elias Lindholm, who unfortunately lost his right wing eligibility this year. He's only going to be a center this year, which makes him significantly less valuable. But there was no way in heck I could drop him any further than number 40 on this list. I still think he's going to have a very strong season. At number 41, I have Sidney Crosby, and he's currently going at ADP of around 18, which is honestly really, really high for Crosby. Obviously, there's a name value there, but Crosby should not be drafted that high, especially since he is a natural center. Crosby did finish as the 24th best player in terms of fantasy points per game last year, so if you do draft him around number 18, it's not the worst draft pick in the world, but it is a natural center, which is why, personally, I think it's a little bit high to draft Crosby that high. Then at number 42, I have Vladimir Tarasenko, and last year he had an awesome year, finished as the 32nd best fantasy player in terms of fantasy points per game. So why do I have him at number 42? Because it's hard to project him this year. There's a good chance that Tarasenko will be traded this year because he has asked for a trade. So in the middle of the season, he could be traded, and depending on where he ends up, his fantasy value changes. In St. Louis, his fantasy value obviously is very high, playing with guys like Robert Thomas and Pavel Buchnevich. If that sticks the entire year, he's definitely going to be more valuable than where I have him at number 42. If he does get traded, obviously his value can get higher or it could get even lower. So it really depends, but I project him here at number 42. At number 43, I have Jack Eichel, who finishes the 44th best player in terms of fantasy points per game. So obviously you understand the ranking a little bit, but he is a natural center, so that should dip him a few spots. But I do think he's going to have a really nice bounce back season this year with Vegas. Hopefully Vegas isn't dealing with so many injuries this year, and if they're not, Eichel should have some pretty decent line mates in Mark Stone and either Chandler Stevenson or Marchessault or whoever they end up putting on that line. And I think Eichel's going to have himself a really nice bounce back year, and he's finally going to make the playoffs for the first time in his career. Then I have Pavel Buchnevich, who finished last year as the 45th best fantasy player in terms of fantasy points per game. At the beginning of the season, though, he was playing on like the third line. So if he sticks that whole season on the top line, especially if Tarasenko stays on the team, he's going to have himself a really strong year with Robert Thomas and Tarasenko. And I got him at number 44. And then I have Nikolai Ehlers of the Winnipeg Jets. And the Jets did make a coaching change. So things are going to be maybe a little bit slow starting for the Jets in general, but I think Ehlers is going to have himself a really amazing year. He finished as the 46th best player in terms of fantasy points per game last year. And that shooting percentage was actually pretty low, so if he can get that shooting percentage up, which he should be able to do, he could finish even higher than that this year, like Nikolai Ehlers at number 45. At number 46, I have Jason Robertson, who had a very high shooting percentage last year, around 18%. I think he's someone that might be able to maintain those kind of numbers every single year. If he can, Jason Robertson is definitely a top 50 fantasy player, and I got him at number 46. Then at number 47, I have Sebastian Aho, who unfortunately is stuck as a natural center. Now, last year he finished as the 41st best player in terms of fantasy points per game, which is pretty good, but I dropped in a few spots just because he is a natural center, and that's less valuable. At number 48, same thing. Mika Zibanejad, I have him this low because he's a natural center. He finished as the number 43 best player in terms of fantasy points per game last year, and I'm expecting a pretty similar year to last year for him, and that's why I have him here at number 48. Number 49, I have Joel Pavelski, who has that beautiful dual edgeability with center and right wing, plays on the top line with Robertson and Hintz. Top power play, and Pavelski has shown no signs of slowing down over the past few years despite his age, like Pavelski at number 49. Number 50, I got Jake Ottinger, the Dallas Stars goalie. And last year, after taking over the crease, looked absolutely fantastic. Should get the vast majority of the starts this year in Dallas, and I think he's going to have himself a really strong fantasy year. Got him as the last player on my list at number 50. And that's it, guys. Do you agree with the list? Is there anyone that you think could have made the list? Or is there anyone that you would take off the list? Let me know down in the comments. Until next time, guys, please leave a like, hit that subscription button, and hit that notification bell. And if you do want to take your support to the next level, the link to my Patreon is down in the description. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.